So in today's video, we're going to be looking at trying to reduce the power consumption of basically all our machines. So just to run you through what machines we have, it's very windy outside. So we have two gammas up there, if you can see that. And then we have one gamma here and one supra here. And then we have two nerdqaxes, the zyber 8. And then over here, we have the bitaxe hex and the Avalon Nano. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at basically trying to reduce them all down to the least power draw. So as we're getting into the winter months, in October, November, December, even January and February, the power cost tends to go up in the UK. So we're trying to reduce it, make it more efficient, whilst also solo mining. So we don't want to spend too much. In the summer months, the power cost goes down a little bit, so we can afford to lose some of that power cost and run a higher hash rate on a lot of these machines. But that's the main goal of today's video, is to get it down so we're working way more efficiently, and we can kind of track that on how much we're actually going to lose and how much we're going to save, in terms of we're going to lose wattage and hash rate, but save on the actual money side on the back end. So before we get into the video, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Crypto Miner Bros.
Since 2018, CryptoMinerBros.com has been the premier site for top-tier crypto mining hardware, earning the trust of miners across the globe. The prices displayed on their site cover shipping and DDP straight to your doorstep, ensuring no unexpected costs at checkout. They deliver to over 100 countries and even provide lower invoicing options to help you cut down on customs fees. Payment is a breeze with options like direct bank transfer or cryptocurrencies including Bitcoin, USDT, or Ethereum. With over 250 ASIC options, they stock some of the channel's favorites like the bitaxe Touch, and the Avalon Nano 3S. Join tens of thousands of happy customers who rely on CryptoMinerBros.com for dependable hardware fulfillment, clear pricing, and a top-notch service. Check out CryptoMinerBros.com today, link in the description.
Okay, so we are going to head over to the computer at some point, but the main things that we're going to focus on is the two gammas up there and then the gamma here. So these aren't going to be too much of a power draw, but as long as we can get the overclocks right. So the chips for all of these should be the same in terms of overclocks, but heat sinks make it a bit more efficient. Same with the nerdqaxe and the parasite nerdqaxe. One of them is slightly less efficient than the other one because of that heatsink that you see down there. The zyber 8, that is just going to be probably the same overclock efficiency as the Supra, because that's what it has as the chips. And then the bitaxe hex, we actually got a comment from somebody the other day that was saying that they were getting this down to around 11 to 12 joules per terahash, which is super efficient for the chips that are underneath, because I think they are ultra chips, so bitaxe ultra chips. And then the Avalon Nano is just going to be high, medium, or low mode, and it's probably going to be low mode. But we'll take it over to the computer. We split out a spreadsheet, so we have all of the wattage, and then we have the swarm version of all of the bitaxes, and all we have to do is add the wattage from the Avalon Nano, and then we'll calculate how much we actually save on the back end by making these as efficient as possible. So let's get into how we're going to underclock all of our machines and how much we're actually going to save from that over the next 4 or 5 months.
Okay, so here we are again on the Swarm, and this is just the Swarm dashboard, which shows us the total hash rate and total power. So this is for all of the bitaxes, nerdqaxe, the bitaxe hex, and the zyber 8, and then the rest of them are all going to be bitaxes. So the main goal is to reduce the total hash rate and also reduce the total power, whilst trying to keep the hash rate high, I guess. So hash rate is going to give us basically more chance of hitting a block over time on the probability scale, and then total power is going to take down the power cost for what we're actually running currently. So that's the swarm of all the bitaxe kind of devices, and then we have the Avalon Nano screen, which is just going to show us the watts from the Avalon Nano and the hash rate. So we're going to bring it into a spreadsheet, which we have here. So we have the swarm watts, so all the watts from here, which is nice that they've split it out so that you can basically combine all of them into the total power and total hash rate. And then the Avalon Nano watts right here. So that's going to give us a figure of the total watts per day, and then the cost per day, which is going to be this number times by 24, divided by 1,000 to bring it into kilowatts, times by our kilowatt rate, which is 26 cents per kilowatt hour. So what we're really trying to do is we're trying to decrease all of this and keep this efficiency number as low as possible. So we might need to turn off some of the less efficient ones to kind of bring this efficiency down. I'm having a feeling that the Avalon Nano is going to probably be the one that we're going to have to take off at some point, just to keep the efficiency low going into the next couple of months. And then we'll do a cost per day analysis times by, I don't know, 120 days to see how much we're actually saving across those 120 days. So this is our control that we have here. So we need to input all of the numbers for here. So swarm watts is 363.7. And then the hash rate is also 20.2 terahash. So this is going to be equals 20.2. So that's the total hash rate there. And that gives us the efficiency of just our swarm. And then we need to input the Avalon Nano watts and plus the hash rate onto there. So we're currently running it on the high mode. So it's 132 watts to 6.31 terahash. So that gives us an overall efficiency of 18.69 joules per terahash across all of our devices, and a total watts per day of nearly 500 watts, which brings us as a cost per day of around $3. Total hash rate is around 26 terahash, 0.52. So this is our control. And basically, we are going to be trying to underclock all of them so we can get this efficiency. We're aiming for anything that's under 15 joules per terahash. And then we'll start taking certain devices off, depending on if they actually fit into the efficiency of 15 joules per terahash. So first one that we probably want to start off with is a simple one, which is the Avalon Nano. We're currently running it on high mode, but I know that low mode is the most efficient. So we can just double tap that to get it back down to low mode. So we'll do that right now. And that should bring the watts right down to probably around 60 watts with a terahash of around 3 terahash. I think the efficiency overall on that is 17 joules per terahash. It might be a little bit bigger, but we'll wait for that to actually spin up or spin down, and then we'll record the figures for that. The next one that I want to do is the bitaxe hex. So I got recommended this crazy underclocking efficiency on the hex. Set the frequency to 400 and the core voltage to 1100, and it gives an average efficiency of around 10 to 11 joules per terahash. So we're going to actually do that on the hex right here. So we're currently running it at 19. If we can get it down, because they are older chips, that would be really good, because that means that we're not spending a crazy amount of electricity. Even though it's 50 watts, we could maybe reduce it by around 25 watts if we used the underclocked versions there. We're going to keep the fan speed at 40, I think, because that seems to work for us and keeps the chip around 40 to 50 degrees. But if you go to the system right here, you can see we are using the older chip version, so BM1366. That's what's on the hex currently. So that's the first one, and I just want to say thank you to this comment for recommending that. We'll see how much efficiency we kind of get down to. The expected is 14.63, but I'm sure that that's going to change over time. So we're basically going to go in and change all of them, wait maybe an hour, then come back and see what the difference is between the control right here and then the underclocked version right there. So I think next one we're going to do all of the gamma devices. So let's exit out of the bitaxe hex and let's open up the gamma devices here at the top of the screen. So this is the first one. I believe this has the Copperzilla on it, so technically it should be the most efficient one. And then we have the AliExpress one, which isn't really that efficient. And then we have the newer one from Power Mining. So for the settings, I think we're just going to go with 490, and then we're going to go 1060. So that's kind of, I think, one of the best ones that we found, and then target temperature is obviously going to be 60 degrees. So let's apply that to all of the gammas. Mainly what you'll see is that we have different efficiencies for different gammas, because the heat sinks aren't as good on some of them. So even this one, the efficiency was okay. This was already on 490 and 160. So maybe that just needs to stay on that. But the efficiency isn't as good. So maybe we'll lower this down to 425. Let's keep it at default and then let's try and restart that. But as I said, the bitaxe gammas, even though they're the same chip, they run vastly differently in terms of efficiency, because you see things like the bitaxe gamma AliExpress version, which that's probably the worst heatsink in terms of the Pi Ice Tower cooler. But you see other things like the Copperzilla, which is a lot better in my opinion. So that's all of the gammas sorted out, and that's the hash rates that we're going with, or the underclocks, let's just say. And then I think we'll move on to the nerdqaxes, which we're already technically on. But let's go to settings here. So we're currently at default, but I think maybe we bring it down to 1.5, and then we keep this at 120. So basically the lowest that we can possibly go. And let's see what we can get with those settings. So we're just changing the other nerdqaxe as well. I expect one of them to be more efficient than the other with the copper heatsink. So maybe if we can get them past around 13 joules per terahash. Weirdly enough, if that bitaxe hex can get down to that efficiency, I'm pretty sure that we can find a way better overclock in terms of the frequency and core voltage for a lot of these that would bring them down even way further. So maybe 10 to 11 joules per terahash. If we can hit that on the bitaxe hex with older model chips, I'm sure we can hit it on the newer model ones as well. So we've done all of these. The Supra and the Zyber 8 are the two last ones that we need to do. So let's open them, and they both have the same chips underneath. So I'm expecting them to be the same overclocks. So currently sitting at 490 and 1120, and the Supra is sitting at, let's just put it down to 400, and let's drag this. So the same thing that we did with the hex, and let's see if that gives us a good efficiency on that. And then let's bring this down to 450, and let's bring the core voltage down to maybe 1000 on here. So let's try that on the Zyber 8. So we're mainly looking to change, or mainly looking to save on these 4 miners right here, because they're the highest wattage ones that we would kind of be looking to save watts on. And then obviously the Avalon Nano, which has now dropped down to 61 watts and 3.33 terahash. So we can actually put that in here, 61, and then hash rate 3.33, and this is equal to this plus this. So currently the efficiency of the Avalon Nano still isn't really that great. It's kind of on par. So we're looking for the rest of them to kind of make up for this lower efficiency miner that we have here. But let's see what we can get on the Avalon Nano and the Zyber 8. So it looks like this is actually coming down pretty well, but the Zyber 8 doesn't look to be actually spinning up. So maybe there's a lower voltage that you actually need. Maybe we'll just disable the overclock mode and switch it back to eco mode. We restart it, and maybe that's gonna actually restart it back up, because I don't think that that overclock actually worked overall. So maybe there's an initial frequency or core voltage that you technically need for the chips to start up, and that's probably at 1100 in terms of the voltage. So if we see here, we'll wait for it to start up. We can also do a test later on down the line of replacing all of the thermal paste. I know we did it for the Zyber 8, but I'd like to replace it for the Hex, the Avalon Nano, the nerdqaxe, both of them, and then all of the bitaxes that we have, just so we can see how much of a difference it actually is between non-thermal paste replaced and other thermal paste, and see how much of a difference that actually makes. But it doesn't look like this Zyber 8 is actually spinning up right now, so we're going to have to mess around with the settings a little bit more. I don't know what's happened with the Zyber 8, but maybe we'll just do a little background check on it as time goes on. But we'll come back in an hour when all of this is kind of settled out, and we'll see what we're working with in terms of the hash rate and the total power, and then we'll compare it to here, see how much we're spending per day, and then see which ones we should take off of mining for now. So let's get back when all of them have kind of steadied out. So we've managed to kind of set all of our quote unquote underclocks, and this is kind of what we're working with. So we have these all kind of set out here, and you can see the wattages that we finished out with. We'll cover kind of what we ended up with later on. But let's just actually enter in the total power and total hash rate figures. So 307 by here, so 307 watts. And then the hash rate is 18.1. So plus 18.1. And that gives us an efficiency of 17.7, which is not actually great. We were hoping for quite a lot more than that, at least down to 15 joules per terahash. But we are going to look at having to take some off. Let's just see how much we've actually saved just by doing that. So a simple calculation of this cost per day minus this cost per day, and then let's just say for the next 120 days, so this times by 120, we have saved around $95 just by underclocking a bunch of these right here, and we are going to be taking some off. So my plan now is to take some off and just redo the thermal paste in preparation for kind of when it is going to start getting back to better electricity prices. And everything that is kind of in the 18 joules per terahash range we're going to take off. So firstly, this bitaxe is, I think technically this AliExpress one is underperforming in terms of the efficiency. These two bitaxes, the one with the Copperzilla and the power mining one, I think we can keep them on because the efficiency is actually pretty good on them. As you can see, it's around 13, but this AliExpress one is around 16.62 or even higher than that. So I think we should take that, or at least unplug it right now. Then we can input some more figures. So we've technically unplugged that one. As you can see there, it's gone to 0. So we're just going to bin that out because we're not going to be using that anymore. The bitaxe Supra that we have open here, again, the efficiency is not great on that. So it's sitting at around 22. And the expected is 19.84. So we're probably going to have to unplug that one as well and take it off. So we've unplugged that one as well, and that should show up here after it refreshes. So that one's gone to 0, so we can take that out. Let's just refresh it again and see what we're at. And then we've got to make a decision basically between the Avalon Nano and the Zyber 8. So the Zyber 8 isn't really at the greatest efficiency. It's still at 17.33, and that is not great in terms of the overall, but the Avalon Nano is at around 18. So we got to pick between the Zyber 8 and the Avalon Nano. I'm thinking we go with the Avalon Nano just because this has more hash rate and it can still sustain fairly lower efficiencies than what the Avalon Nano can even get to. So we're thinking of unplugging that, which would actually take out the Avalon Nano watts and the Avalon Nano hash rate from here. So let's unplug that and take that one out. So this is going to be 0 and this is going to be... So all we need to do now is look at the hash rates for these. So we can keep the actual bitaxe hex. I don't know why, but this efficiency is really good. I don't know why the underclocked version of this is so good in terms of the efficiency, because I can't even get some of the gammas down to it. So maybe you guys, this would be like a part 1, and then you guys could leave some suggestions of what you would do for the rest of them to get them down to the efficiencies that we're looking at on the bitaxe hex that you see here. Because I'm assuming if we can get this efficiency on the hex, we can also get the same efficiency even lower on newer generation chips, because these are the BM1366 chips. And with the Zyber 8, I found out when we were overclocking it, if we go to settings here, it doesn't operate on a core voltage under 1150. So it's interesting that it doesn't operate below that. So anyone can let me know, maybe it's just within the actual firmware of the Zyber 8 currently, where it doesn't operate below that. So that still gives us a good amount of hash rate and a good amount of total power, which we can actually input into the sheet here. So these numbers are going to update as we update the numbers here. Let's just go with 279 and 16.7. So overall, that brings us down to 16 joules per terahash, which is still not what we're looking for. But over the next 4 months, we're going to save $162 from not running the rest of these. And that's pretty good. We could decide to take the zyber 8 off as well, which would be an extra -5 terahash. So if we look here, it'd probably be 11.7 at around 200 watts, 190 watts that it would be. And that gives us, well, not really much more of an efficiency drop, but I think we're going to stick or keep the zyber 8 running and the rest of them running. With the nerdqaxes, as I said, we expect the one with the copper heatsink to be a little more efficient, and technically it is, but we could decide later down the line to take one of these nerdqaxe++s off, unless you guys give me some real efficient overclocks that I can test out on them and get them below kind of the 15 joules per terahash range underclocked. I don't really care about the hash rate, just trying to get them as efficient as possible. So you guys can let me know in the comments. I've kind of played around with what I think is the best option for us currently. But if we took the zyber 8 off, it'd probably save us around $228 in the next 4 months. So let's just divide that by 4. So $57 a month. But if we bring this up to what our total is, 279 and 16, that gives us $40 that we save every month for the next 4 months. So that's actually really good, and in the meantime I think we're just going to redo the thermal paste on a bunch of them, make that into a video as well, and then we'll just leave these running. We'll obviously be making other videos as time goes on, but this is kind of our best way to control the efficiency in the times of higher electricity prices right now. So if you have any comments that you want to make on overclocks, I'm very much open to them and I'll be trying them out. Make sure you like the video and subscribe for more content like this.